right. Hello, good morning. So now that we're fully into Pluto in retrograde and people are out there wishing death on their enemies and doing all that and reversing death magic, and everybody's all about the death, 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 and die, 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 which is understandable because there are some people that are just awful. Okay. But what I wanted to come in and remind you guys about is that past life regression, past life karmic energy, and situations and circumstances is very real. I think that there is a lot of stigmatization surrounding it. The moment that anybody starts talking about past life, people automatically start to relate it to something negative automatically. They start thinking negatively. They start thinking that when you start talking about past life, that there is some kind of mental illness that's going on. I mean, uh, honestly, we have been conditioned to believe that past life stuff and the acknowledgement of it is some kind of mental illness, which is weird because there's all sorts of, like, even TV shows. Like, I was watching one that's very popular. I think it's on A&E. Past life regressions is very real, and yes, there you can do spiritual work. In fact, a lot of people that work with Santa Muerta deals with that. She's sort of like an expert on that. Okay. So even when it comes to the cleanses and stuff, but it's not just that. Like, what's crazy about past life stuff is that it typically hits like when the retrogrades hit. I noticed, and it kind of, um, a lot of people don't have the time nor the means to, hey Adam, a lot of people don't have the time nor the means to actually, like, I guess, think about it or trip on it. But you'd be surprised at how, when it comes to dealing with certain situations, how working through a past life, can really, really help you in this life. So people need to quit forgetting about that instead of, making things about war. Everything is war and drama, everything, for some reason. And it's very frustrating, when you know something about that, because I've been doing this for years and I've been surviving spiritual warfare for quite some time. And I can tell you that sometimes especially right now, sometimes it is factually past life stuff and energies and even spirits, So, but it's so much stigmatization surrounding it. I personally think that it may have something to do with Hollywood. And, like, y'all remember the Eddie Murphy movie, Coming to America, when he runs into that chick in the bar and she's like, I was Joan of Arc in my former life. And she's holding this flame underneath her hand, which, I mean, the way that flame was not bothering her, like, obviously she was Joan of Arc. Like, You know what I'm saying? It was a movie, but you know what I'm saying? If you saw somebody able to do that, you know what I'm saying? But it's actually very relevant to the spiritual community. It does have relevance, a lot of it. In fact, the tarot is actually like a lot of the cards in the tarot, depending on the issue. Like if you've exhausted everything else in your situation, then you may want to look at a past life, especially when you're dealing with people in this life that have a problem with you and you don't know why. Like, why do these people have an issue with me? Why? You know, and I've seen many people sort of it's almost like they're taken over by that. And you know, I've had a spiritual eye my entire life. And when I was a kid, it was actually pretty scary seeing people kind of go in, and I could just always tell. I could just always tell, like, you know, certain like certain people just, it's like a blast from the past or something. It's like, well, this doesn't make any sense, you know, especially when it comes to certain um, global issues that we're dealing with and social issues as well. Um, Things that affected us 100 years ago, 200 years ago, should not be affecting us in this life, okay? It shouldn't be. People from a past life shouldn't be affecting you in this life. You know what I'm saying? They shouldn't even be thinking about you. But a lot of them seem to be possessed, especially the ones in social media. They seem to be possessed. Sometimes people are not possessed by a demon. Sometimes it don't have nothing to do with that. Sometimes it has to do with that space-time continuum, to where if you know, if somebody or a group of people had a problem with you 1,000 years ago, they're totally under possession and under control of that, because especially when it just doesn't make any sense. So sometimes it can be multiple things, you know what I'm saying, depending on that person's trauma in this life. You know what I'm saying? So it is actually, it has a lot of validity. But when we think about past life, we think about therapy. And that's it, going to see a therapist or a psychologist or something. And so I think that that's how it got stigmatized. But it is something that's very relevant and helpful for the spiritual community. I'm not here to hurt the spiritual community like some people. I'm here to help the spiritual community. Okay. So, you know, that's just what that is. But maybe take a look at that, especially with Pluto being in retrograde. Pluto is connected to past life, as well as there's three major planets, but all of the planets can be connected to past life stuff. But typically you're going to go through more when Mercury, Pluto, and Saturn goes into retrograde. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Thank you to you guys that are here to receive the spiritual information. I appreciate it. I'm going to again ask the trolls to go ahead and unsub from the channel. You have no power in the spiritual community. You have no power to do harm to anybody in the spiritual community. And we don't care about what you're talking about, because clearly what we've been doing for 10 years has been working. Okay. Yeah, because I've been in business doing this for people for 10 years and I'm not going to stop. Okay. The link to my link tree is in the video description box. And that's just pretty much it. I know that there's some people in the spiritual community, they like to come on here and pretend to be spiritual, start a whole bunch of drama. To me, those are karmics. You know, this is how I do it. I come on here with very, very valuable spiritual information. If you visit my link tree, you will see my reviews. So, what I do talk about does have validity. It also does work for people, even when people don't want to admit it sometimes. That's okay too. And just take a look at that, especially right now. And it's going to intensify by the full moon, the full fledged craziness. It's going to intensify because we're coming up on a full moon. Okay. All right, y'all. Visit the link tree, and especially some of you guys that are good people, that are having a moment, like that moment, you know what I'm saying, that you're having. You guys are welcome to come to me, okay, to find out what's going on. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all later. Blessings. Bye.